There's one thing that we learned from this election. Well, we should have learned previously, is you just can't trust the polls. I don't know how pollsters are still used, to tell you honestly. But I guess we're a betting nation, so we'd like to know our odds. So we have to know what the odds are, thus polls. And all the polls, or at least a good portion of the polls, had predicted the so-called red wave. And that didn't happen. We got more of a purple wave, at least right now. And we might get a red trickle when all the dust is settled. But the big thing is we can't trust in polls, we can't trust in elections to solve our problems. Psalm 20, starting in verse 7, says this: "Some boast in chariots and some in horses, but we will boast in the name of the Lord, our God. They have bowed down and fallen, but we have risen and stood upright. Save, O Lord. May the King answer us in the day we call." So the Israelites, one of the things they did was they tried to trust the alignment of their nation with other nations around them to bolster their strength against their enemies. So they were putting their trust in horses and chariots, as Psalm 20 points out. And I think there's definitely an analogy there to Christians putting their hope and trust in, let's say, the Republican Party. And I'm guilty of doing the same thing. I had high hopes for yesterday's election, including in my home state of Virginia. Our candidate, Yesli Vega, looked poised to take the seat of Congress from Abigail Spanberger. It looked like it was definitely happening. At one point, she was up by 20, and then with a good portion of the votes counted, she was up by 10, and then, well, now she's lost by 4%. So I felt a dashing of my hopes this morning, partly because I don't understand why people would vote for the same of what we've had, which has produced an economy that has been brought to its knees. It's produced a sexual morality that would approve of men posing as women and vice versa. A policy towards our border that has allowed people to just spill into this country without the capability of meeting their needs. And of course, it's impacting our legal residents. And they've voted to keep things the same regarding crime. And if you've watched anything on crime reports, you'll know that our cities especially are struggling. So anyway, all of that was sad to see, although I know some of the elections are still, we're still waiting for the results. But the bottom line is we cannot trust in man, can't trust in candidates. In fact, we have to go back to 1st century AD to get some perspective. So as a Christian in the United States who is pro-life, pro-small government, things like that, we look at the election results last night and we go, boy, that was pretty bad. But we can still preach the gospel. Yes, there have been some limitations. We can still be pro-life, although that can be dangerous, as we know in some instances where a couple pro-lifers were recently arrested. But we don't go through anything like the 1st century people did, the 1st century Christians. The atrocities of Emperor Nero against Christians are well documented, including, but not all comprehensive, them being lit on fire while still alive and put up as torches to line the streets in Rome. So we don't have anything like the problems they did in the first century, and yet they still praised God, they still trusted him. They couldn't vote for people to represent them. I would protect them from various problems, or would allow them to have good business laws around them. None of that. That was not available to them. So we don't have it bad, is what I'm saying. But it doesn't mean we give up the fight. We take God's principles and we work to apply them to laws that govern the people, because we know that those laws will be better for them if they're based on God's holy standard, his word. So anyway, if you're feeling down today, and if you're following my channel, you likely are somebody that's going to be bent towards the same direction politically as I am. I occasionally draw somebody that isn't of the same political bent, but it's very uncommon. But don't despair. There are other elections, of course, but the main leader we need to be concerned about rules forever, and his name is Jesus Christ. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. God bless.